Hey everybody, welcome back to History Student Reacts. Today we'll be watching Tarrare, the Hungriest Man in History by Sam O'Nella. Now, I've never heard of Tarrare before. I don't know exactly what this video is going to be about, aside from what I can read in the title, but Sam O'Nella always does a great job at finding these interesting characters throughout history and bringing them to us on YouTube. So I'm excited to get into this one, but before I do, I'd appreciate it if you guys would leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out my Patreon, which is linked down below. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into this reaction.
Hey kids, I think we can all agree that there are few pastimes more grotesque than competitive eating. The concept of a bunch of guys pushing their anatomy to its limits just for sport leaves a bad taste in my mouth in more
It's definitely impressive, I'll put it that way.
ways than one. But imagine if these men didn't adopt this habit just for fun. Imagine if some gross biological error forced them to eat like this for their entire life. Introducing Tarrare. Tarrare was born in France around 1772 to a poor farming family.
If Tarrare, well, I don't know how long he's gonna live, but if he lives sort of into his 20s, he's gonna be living through a very interesting time in French history, meaning the French Revolution.
It's said that his appetite was so voracious that, by his teens, Tarrare could eat an entire quarter of a cow carcass in a single day.
Jesus.
You'd think he'd be like mega obese, but no, he only weighed 100 pounds by age 17.
Hey, we're talking about professional eaters, it's like Kobayashi, right? Guy eats a ton, thin as a rail.
However, there were still a few things that stood out about Tarrare appearance-wise. For one, he had a huge, stretched-out mouth with
Wow.
horribly stained teeth.
Ugh.
He could reportedly fit 12 eggs in his cheeks at once, much like a chipmunk keeping its chipmunk eggs warm.
That's like the Chubby Bunny Challenge, where you put all the marshmallows in your mouth, but with eggs instead. Ugh. That's the old-timey version of the challenge.
Additionally, when Tarrare was full, he'd get a crazy Octomom gut going, and any other time, he'd have a huge flap of stretched-out skin hanging around his waist. He
Yeah, okay, there's definitely something wrong with this guy. That is extremely abnormal.
also stank to high hell, even by 18th century French peasant standards. He was described as reeking, quote, to such a degree that he could not be endured within the distance of 20 paces.
Wow.
So between all this and his horrendous outhouse flooding dumps, his family had had enough. Alright, you're eating us out of house and home here. You gotta go, man. You heard me. Kick bricks, Froggy. Wow, he just called a French person a frog. That's so racist. No, it's not. They're all French. The guy just looks like a frog is all. Oh. Well, too late. I'm already offended. That's fair. Dislike. After leaving home, Tarrare was forced to beg and steal just to satisfy his gargantuan appetite. Inevitably, people began to take notice of him, and eventually he landed a job as a street performer in Paris. People would hand Tarrare entire baskets.
I'm telling you, this is a common theme throughout Sam O'Nella's videos. There is sort of an odd individual who becomes known because people find them so entertaining or strange. Timothy Dexter, he was somewhat like that, though he more made his own way and people didn't really want to deal with him. Joshua Norton, right, we did that video last time, he was certainly like that, a strange individual who people came to embrace. And now Tarrare, someone who's incredibly abnormal, but people, they're interested by that sort of stuff.
Of apples, eggs, and even wine corks, and watch in delight as he corked them down without the slightest hesitation. Normally this went off without a hitch, except for one time when he suffered a severe intestinal blockage. Fortunately, the crowd was kind enough to carry him to the hospital, where he was treated with the strongest laxatives the 18th century had to offer. I would draw what happened next, but it would probably get my channel deleted. So
I wonder if the doctors at the time had any sort of idea what was wrong with him. I wonder if doctors today have any sort of idea what was wrong with him.
let's just picture it for a few moments.
No, don't. No, I'm not picturing that.
Moving on. Cut to the year 1792. This marks the
We're into the French Rev.
beginning of the War of the First Coalition. Ever heard of it? Me neither. Who was in it? Fucking everyone. Anyway, Tarrare decided to enlist in
We've talked a little bit about it on this channel, you could say.
the First Coalition. Ever heard of it? Me neither. Who was in it? Fucking everyone. Anyway, Tarrare decided to enlist in the war. After all, maybe that profound emptiness he was feeling was just a lack of purpose in life. Turns out, no, he really was just psychotically hungry. Even after being granted quadruple rations, Tarrare would still be
Jesus.
digging through the trash pile whenever he got the chance. After suffering extreme exhaustion, he was sent off to the military hospital in Suzerain. The staff there was so dumbfounded by the man's abilities that they decided to keep him there to run a few experiments.
Oh, okay.
The first of which involved putting Tarrare in a room with a meal prepared for 15 people. Naturally, he ate the entire thing and immediately fell asleep. Next, they presented him with a raw eel. In response,
So it seems like this guy both had an immense capacity for consuming food and also an immense desire or compulsion to consume food, right? He has both. He feels the need to eat whatever he sees, and also he's able to, right? He's not like throwing it up. He actually consumes an immense amount and apparently digests it. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with this guy.
Tarrare crushed the eel's skull between his teeth,
Ugh.
slurping down the entire creature in one go. Now, this is hair-clenchingly horrifying for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he put a whole frickin' eel in his stomach. But secondly, there had to be some point during digestion where the meat was gone but the bones still remained.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't know, an eel skeleton looks like this. That means Tarrare had all of those needle-sized ribs stabbing into the walls of his stomach at once.
Yeah, this is extremely nasty, I will say. This is way nastier than professional eating.
And he was fine. He also ripped a live cat apart with
What?
his bare hands, drank its blood, and ate everything but its bones, and then later gagged up the fur and skin like an owl. But,
Ugh.
that's neither here nor there. After reviewing our data, I've come to the scientific conclusion that, yeah, we got a goddamn demon on our hands. But as we all
So did they not manage to work out what was wrong with them?
know, with great devour comes great responsibility. Since Tarrare was still technically enlisted, the military decided to utilize his abilities for the greater good.
Oh.
Hey Tarrare, it's me, the General. Listen, could you eat this box with a note in it for me? If you do it, we'll give you a wheelbarrow full of bull organs. Lo and behold, 2 days later, he passed the container in mint condition and was given his reward as promised.
Jesus.
With this proof of concept, they made him an official spy and sent him into Prussia with a document in his belt.
Wow, they're using his powers for the good of the French Republic. A true revolutionary.
To be delivered to an imprisoned French colonel. Unfortunately, there are a couple things Tarrare couldn't do that are generally important when sneaking into another country. A, he couldn't speak German, and B, it's pretty hard to maintain a low profile when you're running around like a madman, wolfing down garbage and mutilating small animals.
Yeah, so he had this one sort of exceptional skill, but it takes a little more than that to be an effective spy. Maybe he could have gone through some training. I don't know what the mental state or the capacities of Tarrare were outside of his eating. Perhaps he could have been trained up, perhaps not. I don't know.
So he ended up being captured by the enemy. Initially, he kept his mouth shut, for once, but after a whipping and a day in jail, Tarrare gave in. After confessing that he did, in fact, have vital intelligence snaking its way through his GI tract, the Prussians chained him to a latrine until the box emerged 30 hours later. The note wasn't actually anything important, so they just mock-executed him, gave him a severe beating, and sent him on his way. After all that, Tarrare returned to life at the hospital, desperate for a cure for his condition, but nothing they ever tried worked. Meanwhile, the man's endless hunger...
Okay, so there's something that he wanted to cure. I mean, I can imagine that. Seems pretty terrible, honestly.
Continued to get him into all sorts of trouble. He'd often sneak out of the hospital to eat the scraps behind the local butcher and fight stray dogs in the alley for their precious garbage. He'd also seek out patients undergoing bloodletting in order to take all their life juice for himself. On several occasions, he was even caught attempting to eat bodies in the mortuary. By this point in my research, I was so desensitized to this guy that I didn't even bat an eye when I first read that. I was just like, alright, guess he must have been hungry. Anyway, the hospital staff begrudgingly tolerated Tarrare's buffoonery until one day when he went too far.
How? He's drinking people's blood, live people's blood, eating bodies? What is further?
Well, Tarrare, you've only had 3 mess hall raids, 4 miscellaneous trash-related mishaps, and 1 cadaver defiling. So I'd say, so far, this week's been pretty good. Doctor, we should probably inform you that a 14-month-old child has gone missing from their room.
No.
Tarrare?
No.
Look at me. Did you eat a fucking baby?
No.
Tarrare was promptly kicked out of the
You have got to be kidding me. Wait a minute. That cannot be true. I gotta look this guy up. Alright, I'm just on Wikipedia, but I'm not trying to do any sort of deep research, you know? Just want to do some light Mock execution, yep. Agreed to submit to any procedure that might cure his appetite. Snuck out of the hospital to scavenge for offal in the gutters, rubbish heaps. Attempted to drink the blood of other patients in the hospital, eat corpses. After being suspected of... Oh my god! This is real! This is actually real! This is insane! Wow. This is actually a bit disturbing, I'm not gonna lie. In fact, more than a bit, that's quite disturbing. Alright, well, let's get back to the video.
Hospital and spent 4 years out and about doing, whatever horrific shit you can imagine. When
Yeah.
he came back, he was suffering from advanced tuberculosis
Ugh.
and died shortly after arrival. During his autopsy, the surgeons found that when they looked into his mouth, they could see all the way down his throat and into his stomach
What
cavity.
the-
As you can imagine, his whole abdominal region was profoundly deformed.
Yeah.
Basically, if this is a normal human, this is what they found
Oh,
inside Tarrare.
God.
Just like the man's mind, we can see that around 90% is devoted
I mean, look, the man clearly had sort of a horrible compulsion that made him, feel the need to eat at any moment. But drinking blood from bloodletting patients, dead bodies, and potentially a live baby. Now, it said suspected, so we don't know, but that is, way, way, way too far. Even if the last one isn't true, the other ones are pretty disturbing enough.
towards food and 10% towards everything else. So, moral of the story here is that, no, you know what? Not even I can find anything resembling a moral
Yeah,
here.
I don't know what you take away from this. This is, once again, like I said, another one of these abnormal people that Salmonella highlights. This has definitely been the most, well, maybe not, we did that one on the dog meat general a while back. But I think this still might be the most disturbing one we've seen.
Not all stories have a point to them. Sometimes they're just sad and disgusting from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And now a word from our sponsor. As you can probably tell, I'm a very visual person when it comes to learning. I firmly believe that engaging visuals are an essential teaching tool that allows for much deeper comprehension than plain old walls of text. That's why I'm pleased to introduce...
Alright, so I'll link Salmonella's video down below. It's been a while since this one came out, so I don't know if the sponsor link is still working, but hey, you can go check it out. Go give them a like. So this was another video. I mean, look, this Salmonella does a great job. This one was pretty disturbing. This one was, it was something. I'll say that much. I don't know if I'm better off knowing about Tarrare than not knowing about this guy. I think, I may have been happier not having known, but, this was quite the story. I have to say, it really was. So if you guys enjoyed this one, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a like, subscribe, check out my Patreon, all that. I hope you guys are having a good day today, and I'll see you all again next time. Goodbye.